The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Dr. Sarah Chen strode through its crystalline doors, her boots echoing against the polished floor. Behind her, the rest of the human diplomatic team followed, their casual confidence a stark contrast to the tense postures of the assembled alien delegates. Councillor Zixtal, their tentacles rippling with barely contained anxiety, floated forward to address them. Humanity sends mere scientists to address our crisis. A councillor's translator conveyed both words and disapproval. We requested military assistance. The crystal stalkers have already destroyed 3 colony worlds. Sarah smiled, adjusting the simple sensor package on her belt. Sometimes the best weapon is understanding, Counselor. I'm a xenozoologist specializing in non-carbon-based life forms. Show me these crystal stalkers of yours. The assembled council members exchanged troubled glances. A Valaxian representative, their metallic skin reflecting the chamber's lights in nervous patterns, stepped forward. Dr. Chen, you don't understand. These aren't simple beasts. They're living crystals, each one larger than a transport ship. They consume energy sources, including our fusion cores, and nothing we've tried can stop them. They don't respond to containment fields, weapons, or any attempt at communication. Has anyone tried listening? Sarah asked, pulling out a handheld device that emitted a soft, pulsing glow. Listening. The word rippled through the chamber in various translations, each carrying its own tone of disbelief. Yes, listening. Every predator communicates, Counselor, even silicon-based ones. Sarah activated her device, bringing up a holographic display of crystalline structures. Your reports mention they move in formations. That suggests organization, perhaps even social structure. We've dealt with similar situations back home. Admiral Kexthor, a veteran of countless space battles, his scales darkened with age, laughed harshly. Similar situations. Human, we've lost entire battle fleets to these creatures. They shrug off our most powerful weapons like cosmic dust. Sarah's colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez, stepped forward, his dark eyes twinkling with interest rather than fear, which might suggest they're not trying to fight you at all. You ever try to swat a fly while it's just trying to tell you something? The chamber erupted in murmurs and translations. Councillor Zixtal raised their tentacles for silence. You speak in riddles, humans. These are not insects. They are planet killers. Maybe, Sarah conceded, or maybe there's something else entirely. Show us your latest encounter site. Let us observe them directly. Observe. Admiral Kexthor's translator crackled with incredulity. The last observation team was obliterated. The last observation team went in expecting to find monsters. Sarah countered. We're going in looking for answers. There's a difference. After hours of heated debate, the Council reluctantly agreed to transport the human team to the Proxima colony, the latest world under threat from the Crystal Stalkers. As their ship approached the colony's space station, Sarah and James watched through the viewport as massive crystalline forms drifted through space, their faceted surfaces refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Beautiful, Sarah whispered, adjusting her sensors. Look at how they move together. That's not random, James. That's synchronized. Like a dance, James agreed, recording the movements. The energy readings are fascinating. They're not just absorbing radiation. They're processing it, changing it somehow. The Valaxian pilot turned to them, their metallic skin reflecting confusion. Beautiful. They've destroyed everything they've encountered. How can you see beauty in destruction? Sarah's eyes never left the crystal beings as she replied. Because, friend, what you see as destruction might just be their way of saying hello. We humans learned long ago that sometimes the scariest things in the universe are simply misunderstood. She tapped her sensor readings. And these readings? They're not weapon signatures. They're communication patterns. As the ship docked with the station, Sarah turned to address the pilot. Tell the Council to prepare their translation matrices. We're about to have first contact all over again, but this time, we're going to do it right. The pilot stared at her. "You truly believe you can communicate with these things?" Sarah's smile widened as she checked her equipment one last time. "Oh, I don't just believe it. I'm counting on it." Sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from fighting what we don't understand, but from taking the time to listen to what it's trying to tell us. Little did the Council know, but humanity's first step toward changing the galaxy's understanding of intelligence wasn't going to come from their weapons or their technology, but from their ability to see beauty where others saw only threat, and possibility where others saw only danger. The observation deck of Proxima Station hummed with tension as Dr. Sarah Chen methodically arranged her equipment. Through the reinforced viewport, the crystal stalkers drifted in complex patterns, their massive forms catching and refracting the light of distant stars. Behind her, Council security forces stood ready, weapons charged despite her explicit requests to the contrary. "Your instruments will tell us nothing new, human," Admiral Kexthor rumbled, his scaled fingers drumming against the command console. "We've analyzed them with every scanning technology in the known galaxy." Sarah didn't look up from her work as she responded. "But did you ever try listening to them without trying to classify them as weapons?" She adjusted a crystalline resonator, its surface deliberately cut to match the facets she'd observed on the beings outside. "Every pattern tells a story, Admiral. We just need to learn how to read it." James Rodriguez, her colleague, was busy setting up a series of prismatic arrays. "Look at their movement patterns," he said, pointing to a holographic display. "They're not random attacks. They're searching. The energy absorption isn't weaponized. It's methodical. Almost. Hungry. Hungry." Councillor Zixtal's tentacles writhed in agitation. "They've drained entire power grids. They've collapsed fusion cores." "Yes," Sarah agreed, finally looking up. "But have you noticed they always leave enough energy for emergency systems? For life support? That's not the behavior of mindless destroyers." The observation deck fell silent as her words sank in. A young Valaxian analyst, their metallic skin shifting in thoughtful patterns, spoke up. "Now that you mention it, we've never had a complete planetary collapse. Even in the worst attacks, basic infrastructure remained functional." Sarah nodded encouragingly. "Exactly. These beings aren't attacking your colonies. They're feeding, yes, but they're being careful about it. The question isn't how to stop them. It's how to talk to them about sharing resources." Outside the viewport, one of the largest crystal stalkers had begun moving closer to the station. Its crystalline surface pulsed with internal light, creating patterns that reflected off its neighbors in a cascade of illumination. Security forces raised their weapons, but Sarah quickly waved them down. "Watch," she commanded, adjusting her resonator. The device began emitting a soft, harmonic frequency that matched the crystal being's pulsations. "They're not random lights. It's language. Pure energy converted into meaning." The massive crystal entity paused its approach, its internal lights shifting to match the frequency of Sarah's device. The other crystals in the group began to align themselves, creating a geometric pattern that seemed to focus on the station. "My God," James whispered, frantically recording data. "They're responding. Sarah, look at these energy signatures. They're modulating their output to match our broadcast frequency. They're trying to talk back." Admiral Kexthor leaned forward, his battle-hardened exterior cracking slightly to reveal genuine curiosity. "How is this possible? We've tried every known form of communication. But you tried communicating the way carbon-based life forms communicate," Sarah explained, carefully adjusting her resonator's output. "These beings exist in a different paradigm entirely. They don't see or hear the way we do. They experience reality through energy states and crystalline vibrations." The crystal beings had now arranged themselves in a perfect hexagonal pattern, their internal lights pulsing in synchronized waves. Sarah's instruments were recording unprecedented amounts of data, each pulse revealing new layers of complexity in their communication. "Look at this," James called out, projecting a new hologram. "Their energy signatures. They're not just communication patterns. They're sharing information about their entire species. These beings, they're ancient. They'd been traveling through space for millions of years. Sarah nodded, her face illuminated by the crystal being's ethereal light. They're not destroyers or conquerors. They're explorers, just like us. They travel through space, seeking energy to sustain their civilization, leaving enough behind to ensure other life can continue. The council members watched in stunned silence as the crystal beings continued their synchronized display. The security forces had lowered their weapons, their previous fear giving way to wonder. All this time, Counselor Zixtal mused, their tentacles swaying thoughtfully. We've been treating them as an invasion force when they were trying to establish diplomatic relations in their own way. That's often the way of it, Sarah said softly, her hands moving deftly over her equipment. The universe is full of intelligence that doesn't match our preconceptions. Humanity learned that lesson early in our own space exploration. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the unknown creature you're facing. It's your own assumptions about it. As the crystal beings continued their mesmerizing display, Sarah began the painstaking process of documenting their communication patterns. The first real conversation with these ancient spacefaring beings was about to begin, and with it, the galaxy's understanding of intelligence would change forever. In the converted cargo bay of Proxima Station, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before an array of crystalline resonators that formed a complex communication grid. The massive space had been transformed into what she called the Symphony Chamber, where the first true dialogue with the Crystal Stalkers, now known as the Crystalline Collective, was about to take place. What you're about to witness, Sarah announced to the assembled council members, is not just communication. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we understand consciousness itself. The chamber's walls pulsed with carefully calibrated energy fields, creating an environment where both organic and crystalline life could interact safely. Outside the station's reinforced walls, hundreds of crystal beings had gathered, their massive forms arranged in intricate geometric patterns that seemed to shimmer with purpose. James Rodriguez monitored the energy grid, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. We're ready, Sarah. The translation matrix is online, and the harmonic frequencies are stable. Counselors, Sarah addressed the gathering. What you previously interpreted as attacks were actually attempts at connection. The crystalline collective exists in a state of constant energy exchange. They don't speak. They resonate. They don't write. They modulate. And today, we're going to join their symphony. Admiral Kexthor, who had become increasingly fascinated despite his initial skepticism, leaned forward. And you're certain they won't drain the station's power? Sarah smiled. They're already showing remarkable restraint. Notice how they've positioned themselves to minimize gravitational impact on our station. That's not accident. It's courtesy. With a nod to James, Sarah activated the primary resonator, the chamber filled with a harmonious vibration that made the air itself seem to sparkle. The crystal beings outside responded immediately, their internal lights pulsing in synchronized patterns that matched the frequency. Amazing, breathed the young Volaxian analyst, their metallic skin rippling with excitement. The energy signatures, they're perfectly aligned with our broadcast, but they're adding layers of complexity I've never seen before. Sarah's eyes gleamed as she adjusted the resonators. That's because they're not just responding. They're teaching. Watch this. She modified the harmonic frequency slightly, and the crystal beings shifted their formation, creating a new geometric pattern that seemed to ripple through space. The translation matrix began processing the energy patterns, converting them into something the organic beings could understand. Holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber, showing complex mathematical equations and astronomical data. They're showing us their history, James explained, his voice filled with wonder. These patterns, they're star maps. They're showing us where they've been, the civilizations they've encountered. They've been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. The council members watched in amazement as the crystal beings shared their knowledge. Through the resonator array, they learned that the crystalline collective wasn't just a group of energy-consuming entities. They were living libraries, each one containing eons of accumulated knowledge about the galaxy. This is beyond anything we imagined, Counselor Zixtal admitted, their tentacles moving in patterns of excitement. They're not just intelligent, they're repositories of universal knowledge. Sarah nodded, carefully modulating the resonator frequencies. And they've been trying to share this knowledge with us all along. What we saw as energy drainage was actually their attempt to establish a connection, to create a medium through which they could communicate. Through the translation matrix, the crystal beings began sharing more detailed information. They showed how they had evolved on a world of living crystal, how they had learned to harness stellar energy to achieve consciousness, and how they had eventually taken to the stars to explore and learn. "Look at this," James called out, highlighting a particular energy pattern. "They're showing us how they sustain themselves. They don't just absorb energy. They process it, refine it, and can even return it in more efficient forms. They could revolutionize our understanding of energy technology." The Admiral's scales shifted color in amazement. "You mean all this time, they weren't trying to steal our energy. They were trying to help us improve it." "Precisely," Sarah confirmed, her hands moving deftly over the controls. "They've been attempting to initiate an exchange of knowledge. Every colony they visited, they were trying to establish contact, to share their understanding of energy manipulation. But our fear prevented us from seeing it." As the crystal beings continued their mesmerizing display of knowledge, the assembled council members began to understand the true magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't just first contact with a new species. It was the beginning of a partnership that could transform their understanding of the universe itself. "We're witnessing the birth of a new era," Sarah announced, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "One where different forms of life can learn from each other, where consciousness isn't limited to our carbon-based understanding. The galaxy is far more diverse and wonderful than we ever imagined." Outside the station, the crystal beings had begun forming new patterns, their lights pulsing with what could only be described as enthusiasm. They were eager to share, eager to learn, eager to begin a true exchange of knowledge with their organic counterparts. The symphony of understanding had begun, and its music would forever change the course of galactic history. The Proxima Station's main conference chamber had been transformed. Where once stark military monitors dominated the walls, now crystalline interfaces sparkled with prismatic light. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled Galactic Council, but this time she wasn't alone. Beside her, a crystalline projection shimmered, the chosen representative of the crystalline collective, dubbed Harmony by the human team. "What you're about to witness," Sarah announced, her voice steady with carefully contained excitement, "is the first formal diplomatic exchange between organic and crystalline consciousness." The projection beside her pulsed with patterns of light that the newly refined translation matrix converted into words. "We have waited epochs for this moment. To be understood, to share, to grow together." Admiral Kexthor, who had become one of their strongest advocates, leaned forward. His battle-scarred scales now reflected the crystalline light with an almost reverential quality. "To think we nearly went to war with them. All those resources we poured into weapons development. Resources better spent on understanding." Harmony's lights pulsed. "Your fusion technology, primitive but promising. We can show you efficiency improvements of 300%. This is just the beginning." James Rodriguez, manning the translation matrix, couldn't suppress his grin. "The energy exchange protocols they've already shared have revolutionized our power distribution systems. The Valaxian colonies are reporting 150% increase in power efficiency just from the preliminary adjustments." The young Valaxian analyst, now a permanent liaison to the crystal beings, their metallic skin shimmering in harmony with the crystalline lights, added, "And they've shown us how to modify our shields to prevent energy bleed. Our colonies have never been more secure." Sarah moved to the center of the chamber, where a new holographic display sprang to life. But energy technology is just the surface. The Crystalline Collective has offered to share their astronomical databases, star charts, and cosmic phenomena they've documented over millions of years of space travel. Harmony's form shifted, creating a dazzling display of star maps and gravitational data. Your organic minds see space differently. Your perspective adds depth to our understanding. Together, we map the cosmos more completely. Counselor Zixtal's tentacles moved in patterns of pure joy, a display that would have been considered highly improper just weeks ago. They've already helped us plot safer hyperspace routes. Travel times between core worlds have been reduced by 30%. Symbiosis, harmony pulsed. Your organic adaptability, our eternal memory. Perfect balance. As if to demonstrate, the crystal being's projection expanded, filling the chamber with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Points of light highlighted previously unknown phenomena, safe passages through treacherous space, and potential sites for new colonies. But perhaps most importantly, Sarah continued, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the chamber, they've offered to teach us about other forms of consciousness they've encountered. The galaxy is far more diverse than we imagined. Life exists in forms we never thought possible. The display shifted, showing various non-organic life forms the Crystalline Collective had encountered. Plasma beings dancing in stellar coronas, quantum consciousness existing in subspace, even silicon-based civilizations that had evolved along entirely different paths than the crystal beings themselves. Your fear of difference, harmony pulsed, the translation carrying a note of gentle understanding. It limits you, yet your capacity for growth, for acceptance, this makes you unique. Special. Admiral Kexthor rumbled thoughtfully. We've spent millennia building defenses against the unknown. Perhaps it's time we built bridges instead. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement as Harmony's projection shifted again, this time showing possible collaborative projects. Joint research stations, energy exchange protocols, deep space exploration initiatives. The Crystalline Collective proposes not just alliance, the translation matrix conveyed, but true partnership. Your ships carrying our knowledge, our beams protecting your colonies. Shared growth, shared discovery. Sarah watched as the council members began discussing the possibilities with growing enthusiasm. The fear that had dominated their first encounters with the crystal beings had been replaced by something far more powerful, hope. Look at them, James whispered to her, nodding toward where several council members were eagerly discussing potential applications with Harmony. A month ago, they were ready to declare war. Now they're planning joint scientific missions. Sarah smiled, remembering the tense first moments of their encounter. That's always been humanity's gift to the galaxy, hasn't it? Not our technology or our military might, but our ability to see past differences, to find connection where others see only threat. As if in response, Harmony's lights pulsed with a pattern they had come to recognize as laughter. Humans, the translation raid. You teach even ancient ones new ways to see. Perhaps this is why the cosmos brought us together. The symphony of understanding between organic and crystalline life continued to play, its harmony growing richer with each passing moment, promising a future brighter than any species could have imagined alone. 1 year after first contact, the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station hung in space like a jewel, its crystalline architecture seamlessly blending organic and crystalline design. Dr. Sarah Chen stood with James Rodriguez and Admiral Kexthor, watching as a fleet of human ships moved in perfect formation with crystal beings, their combined energy signatures creating patterns of breathtaking beauty. Would you believe me, the Admiral mused, his scales gleaming with pride, if I told you that a year ago, I was advocating for a full military response to their presence? Sarah smiled, adjusting the new crystalline interface embedded in her workstation. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from winning battles, but from avoiding them entirely. The station itself was a testament to their successful partnership. Crystal beings had integrated themselves into its very structure, providing power, protection, and processing capabilities far beyond traditional technology. Where fear once ruled, now innovation flourished. Latest reports from the joint expedition to the galactic core, James announced, scanning the data streams. The crystalline collective's navigation techniques have allowed our ships to explore regions we thought were impossible to reach. They've discovered 3 potentially habitable worlds just in the last month. Through the viewport, they watched as a massive crystal being demonstrated a new energy transfer technique to a group of Valaxian engineers. The sight of organic beings working in perfect harmony with these ancient cosmic travelers had become wonderfully commonplace. Teaching goes both ways, pulsed Harmony, who had become a permanent liaison to the station. The translation matrix, now refined to near-perfect accuracy, conveyed their thoughts. Your organic perspective challenges our ancient assumptions. You see patterns we missed in our eons of observation. Sarah nodded, remembering the breakthrough from just last week. A human child, visiting the station with their scientist parents, had noticed a correlation in crystal energy patterns that had led to a revolutionary new understanding of subspace mechanics. The crystal beings had been studying these patterns for millions of years, but it took a fresh, organic perspective to see the connection. The Council has approved the expansion of the Harmony Initiative, Admiral Kexthor announced, pulling up a holographic display of the galaxy. Points of light indicated the locations of planned joint stations. We're establishing these cooperative research centers across all major sectors. The display showed organic ships and crystal beings working together, creating a network of knowledge and cooperation that spanned the galaxy. What had started as a potential conflict had blossomed into one of the most significant technological and cultural advances in known history. But perhaps most significantly, James added, the crystal beings have begun sharing their records of other non-organic life forms they've encountered. We're preparing first contact protocols for at least 5 new species previously thought to be natural phenomena. Harmony's lights pulsed with enthusiasm. The galaxy teems with consciousness in forms organic minds once feared to recognize. You help us bridge these gaps. Together, we become more than teachers or students. We become discoverers. The station hummed with energy as a new group of crystal beings approached, their formation indicating they carried important news. Their lights pulsed in complex patterns that the translation matrix quickly decoded. They found something. Sarah breathed, reading the incoming data. A signal from beyond the galactic rim. Something unlike anything they've encountered in all their millions of years of exploration. Admiral Kexthor's scales shifted in excitement. Not a threat this time, I trust. No, Harmony pulsed, their light patterns conveying what could only be described as joy. An invitation, a challenge, a new frontier for both our kinds to explore together. Sarah looked out at the vast expanse of space, where organic and crystalline beings moved in harmony, their combined purpose greater than the sum of their parts. That's what exploration should be about, isn't it? Not conquering or controlling, but understanding, growing, learning together. The humans have a saying, James added, smiling. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I don't think we truly understood what that meant until now. As they stood together, human, alien, and crystal being, watching the combined fleet prepare for its next great adventure, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. From fear and misunderstanding to partnership and discovery, their journey had opened up possibilities none of them could have imagined alone. To new frontiers, Admiral Kexthor declared, his voice carrying the weight of history in the making. To new understanding, Harmony pulsed in response. To endless discovery, Sarah concluded, as the stars beckoned them onward, promising adventures yet untold in the vast cosmic dance of organic and crystalline life united in purpose and wonder. The symphony of understanding they had started continued to play across the galaxy, its harmony growing richer with each new discovery, each new connection, each new step into the unknown. The future they were building together was brighter than any single species could have imagined alone, a testament to the power of understanding over fear, of connection over conflict, of harmony over discord. And somewhere, in the infinite expanse of space, new mysteries waited to be unraveled by this unprecedented partnership of organic and crystalline minds, united in their quest for knowledge and understanding.